Became involved with the theater courses at Boston University. And that was where I got a real inspiration to lead a theater group. In Baltimore, we were still segregated as far as theater was concerned, and there were places where we couldn't, my people couldn't go and sit in the audience and feel comfortable because people would ask you not to come. There were certain groups that sponsored plays at the community theaters, the Vagabonds, the Spotlighters, and others, that didn't want any black people in the audience. So I was able to make quite interesting friends among the staff and the theater people and find out some things that I didn't learn at Boston University. I was treated cordially. All the questions that I had were answered, but I was told very frankly that I wasn't wanted or could not be permitted to view the plays or to become a part of the company, any of the companies.
I was doing this play, 5 on the black hand side, and I'll never forget it. There was a party scene, and every night somebody in that party scene wouldn't come. Bob Smith, Catherine, you had to put on. I said, I didn't come down here to be at any play. When you come down here, you do whatever they tell you to do. So every night someone was out in that party scene, I'd put on this African stuff and go out there and dance at the party and make the toast, and then take my costume off and go back to doing the props. And you know, it was really funny when we had upstairs to get from stage right to stage left, you had to run down the steps where the theater is now, had to run through here and run up the back. So see, I was young then, I could do it. But it was just such a pleasure and such a joy.
So I'm so proud of the young folks. You talk about, Sheila, where you might have been, but that program gave so many children an opportunity to save their own lives through the arts, and it was wonderful, and many of them I still see. So having done that, June Thorne and Sam sort of picked me up from somewhere and told me to come down, and I came down, and we did 5 on the black hand side, and that was so incredibly interesting. But we had a good time, and I never left. I can say that I've performed with all of them. It is just such a joy. There's nothing that I could do in terms of training that would take the place of what I got from them. They were incredible. And I give Sam Wilson credit for the next step, because he heard that the American Theater Association was giving away, what did every year through UERTA University Resident Theater Association, opportunities for people in different arenas and connected with the theater. So he told me that I needed to audition. I said, I'm not auditioning, I have a job. I have a real local government job, and I like what I'm doing. Good government job. Okay, I'm teaching school, back up. But he insisted, so we found that 3-minute monologue, and Alfie Brown was my coach, and Sam was my coach, and I did the first round and made it through and was astonished, and made it to the second round, and that gave me the opportunity to go to the last round, and I got an offer from the Oregon Shakespearean Festival, which I did for a moment, and that was interesting, but it was way too far and but it was interesting. Yeah. And also the University of Pittsburgh, and that was one of the pinnacles in my life, because at that time, if you think back to the years that I'm talking, August Wilson was still working with Kuntu Repertory Company with Vernell Lilly, and Rob Penny, who August always said was his mentor. And Rob Penny was just an incredible person at the time. He was working on Little Willie Armstrong Jones, and August actually was starting Fences. And so it really was a wonderful time working with that, because he was transitioning from being a poet into being a playwright. So it was wonderful getting to be his practice rose. And I hold tightly to that, no matter who I see doing it. I remember that while he was saying, say this loud, or do it like this, no, and would change how he would do it. And I remember that Dr. Favarini, who was the head of Pitt's theater department, said that August Wilson should stick to poetry because he'd never make it as a playwright.
How wrong was he?
On that 20th anniversary, we all got together. I had a copy of the article, and we got together to show him now, how do you like him now? So that was wonderful because I could bring that back. But I have to say that between the youth theater, doing the youth theater, Shirley Watson, Sevelin White, we had a team, and I'm still in contact with most of them. Either they've been my parents in school where I've been an administrator, or we just connect.
You know, every now and then, not every now and then, very often I run into these conversations about why ethnically specific theater is important, right? Why culturally specific theaters are important. And, you know, you're making me think of that right now with the story of this young man, and you call him over to have this other experience. It's quite different experience being in a predominantly white institution or environment trying to learn the craft, right? Like you know, Devron was kind of alluding to, is like you only get a slice of the pie, right? It's the immersion, just like when you attend a historically black college, that is so crucial for someone's understanding, overall understanding of how to execute, kind of a thing. And so, you know, that's my pushback every time I run into those conversations. It's like some of what is gained through this experience cannot be articulated, right? Being around your own culture and your own folks in order to understand a thing, you can't articulate every part of that, and nor should you have to, right? Because nobody is approaching the predominantly white institution asking, you know, why, you know, their programming is the way it is and, you know, populates the way it populates, kind of a thing. So, you know, I say all that to say that this is this youth theater, you know, this youth theater that's been around really, you know, since the institution has been around, is something that has to sustain itself. It has to continue on. There's a rhyme and reason and a purpose for it. The fact that it's still here and it's not advertised.
I know, right? That's pretty.
And there's always been a self-sustaining program within the theater.
Right.
Yeah. I think
We had so much fun in those days. I mean, we never wanted to leave. You know, we would be here.
Hearing that, nobody wants to leave the building.
Yeah, and we, you know, and then we'd be here in the summer times, but as we kind of got older and the older the more they trusted you, you know, we could go out and we'd go to Lexington Market and maybe, you know, get food and then come back. And a lot of us did at that point too, you know, you could I don't want to say upgrade, but you might be called on to do one of the adult shows at night. So you'd have to stay and you'd be a kid in the main stage production, and, you know, so it was, I won't say it still is a very special place, but in that time for me growing up, we never left. There was a couch in that bathroom, and, you know, in the costume shop, we'd sneak up there and sleep and take naps in between because we wanted to stay for the main stage show that night. Sleep in the dressing rooms, like we would have parties, like cast parties in the dance room.
Oh, wow.
It was a really, for a kid, like a really special place to grow up, for sure.
I keep hearing family oriented, like it was a big family. At the end of the day, that's how everyone kind of functioned and dealt with each other, for better or for worse.
For better, for worse,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And I'm, you know, I have to say I'm privileged to have been here with the likes of those, you know, Joan Corsi's and, you know, still obviously Miss Orange and, you know, and and being here with those, John Taylor and Shirley Watson and Joan Corsi, and having to know Nancy Barrick, who's walking around here, but knowing all those, those vets was still at that time. And so Sam Wilson was a huge part of me as I grew up here, because I loved him. He was a really huge part of me being here. Yeah. And so my mom got into it too. Because she would drop me off here, and then at one point I started doing lights a little bit. And then I think my mom was stage managed at one point, and then she started doing the lights, and now, like 40 years later, whatever, she's still doing lights and running youth theater, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you use this as a platform, right? As a stepping stone into a professional career, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have, I don't think I would do what I do now when I do it. I wouldn't be able to do any professional shows that I've done without have ever been here. Absolutely. And it's so, at this time too, and I don't do much, but my mom's still here, so coming down and just being around, is still very important to me. And in
Very
every
important to
show,
us.
every play, anything that I ever do, I always mention the Arena Players, because it's where I came from.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you for that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we're going to capture more of you as we begin to eat and stuff.
Sure.
Catch you with a piece of chicken in your mouth.
That's always the case. That always happens.
But thank you for taking
Everybody does the fake out. Yeah, man.
The hardest working man.
James A. Brown, wearer of many hats. And
That's why.
being somebody who wears a lot of different hats and does a lot of different things, both here at the Playhouse and other places in my life, I want to say that Arena Players is the 6 degrees of separation for all of us at this table, because you'll hear in the conversation that this organization that we worked with, or this person that we worked with, is just a few degrees away from Arena Players. So though David, didn't make it to Arena Players, he encountered Sam Wilson, and eventually Sam Wilson taught at Coppin, and David taught at Coppin. So again, eventually those degrees of separation begin to prove exactly how, if you're black and doing theater in this city, eventually you're going to come through Arena Players. And I would say that even individuals that aren't black, white, Asian, whatever, they're just a show away from being on the stage at Arena Players. So then we're going to do a show, and somebody's going to get that phone call that we need this actor, that actor, and they'll be here. And that they just don't understand how important this organization is to the city, and how it does even feed and help the other organizations. That's one of the reasons why I came into existence, was because our ancestors, our Arena Players ancestors, forefathers and foremothers, needed a home to perform the shows that they wanted to do. And they didn't want to be butlers and maids and slaves and forget about first, second, third, fifth, just supporting cast and never getting lead roles. And so I came to, I'm actually second generation Arena Players. My mother's name is Lorraine Brown, and there was another Lorraine Brown here, but she did many people knew that Lorraine Brown, but my mother came here with John Taylor as a dancer.
Our productions on the campus of Coppin State College. That was in the days when that whole area was very sylvan, very rural almost. It was pastoral, it was beautiful. Place where on a Sunday afternoon you could stroll around and there were trees and squirrels and birds and all of those. That was before Mondawmin was presented. And then that became a highly trafficked metropolitan urban area, and things zip back and forth through that. Be careful if you try to cross Warwick Avenue, just going across the street. But in those days, there were small cottages on the campus of Coppin State College, and there was one big gray building that had been the home of the deaconesses, I think, for the Lutheran Church. And that building was transformed into the headquarters for Coppin State, with all of the classrooms in the office. The administrative offices were all located in that one building. And scattered around the campus were some small, very picturesque buildings, the kind that you see on postcards, the kind that you look at lovingly during the summer vacation and say, wouldn't it be nice to settle down here? Well, those things are all gone, every last one of them. There's nothing that would remind you of the fact that this used to be a wooded-looking area, that this was like going into the country. Sunday afternoons, when we did performances, we came out between matinee and evening performance and just sat around and had picnics on the grass there. It was so pleasant. Well, after a while of using this building, the college decided to restructure its physical education program, and they decided that they were going to remodel the building. When they remodeled the building, they asked us not to come back because they needed the space. Well, it wasn't too much longer after that they also decided they'd tear the building down, which is one of the ironies of modernization in our country. We moved from the campus of Coppin State College down to the YMCA on Druid Hill Avenue, in the 1500 block of Druid Hill Avenue. It's been there forever and ever and ever. But the Y became an integrated institution, and the people downtown were welcoming anybody from uptown who wanted to come. And everybody wanted this brand new experience going to the big Y downtown, so they deserted the one on Druid Hill Avenue. And it became almost a barn. We went and we finally got a chance to take one of the rooms and transform it into our theater. So we moved there. Now, this is an interesting thing about the kind of industry and dedication that the members of the group had. We had to put up everything, lights, scenery, all of the equipment that you need to present a play every night, and take it down every night, including the folding chairs in which the audience sat. Because the room had to be used by a group of little boys, I don't know what they were, one of the pre-steps before you get to the Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts or somebody even earlier than that. But the room had to be cleared every night, so that meant that after you had wired all the lights and put up all the scenery and put up all the chairs and put up all the equipment that you needed, you had to clear all of that away so that the room could be left absolutely clean at the end of the evening, which meant that we spent from 6 to 2 in the morning every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But we did it, and we did it for several years. And then suddenly the Y became so popular because of our activities that other groups decided they would come, and suddenly there were dance lessons being held at the Y, and there were exercise lessons being held at the Y, and the popularity began to come back. And the next thing the people said to us was, we're sorry, but we need the space.
When I was teaching, one of my friends at school was a cousin of Christine Moore, and she was talking about the arena players and whether or not I was interested in joining. And one night we came down to be interviewed, because in those days you had to be interviewed. And we were interviewed in Verna Day's apartment. And Irv Turner, George Barrick, Sam Wilson, and June Thorne and Christine Moore were sitting on a sofa, and we had to well, wait in the kitchen for our turn. And when our turn came, we came in and sat in a single chair, kitchen chair, facing this crew. Oh, there was other, Jack Wilson was there too. And they asked us all kinds of questions. Little did we know that they really needed us badly because they needed a Cass picnic. And I ended up, each one of us that night who interviewed, Sarah Gray, Nora Etheridge, and me, each one of us got a part in the play. I was Miss Potts. That was my first role. Miss Potts. And Sam used to tease me all the time because there's a line in the play that says, "Shoot, Miss Potts," when he's talking to her. And she always says, "Shoot, Miss Potts." But anyway, that was my first role with the Arena Players.
And where were you performing at that time?
At that time, we were performing at Coppin on the, we had one of the buildings there on campus. And I think I don't know if I gave that picture to the players or not, but I have a picture of that building.
I'm going to fish it out.
Yep, it's on the campus.
Yeah.
We that building was also used as gym for Coppin.
Oh, okay.
It's a campus up on North Avenue. And we would set up the set and everything, or they would, because I didn't help with the set. They'd set it up, and on Sunday night, at the end of the play, the set had to be broken down because they had to have classes in the building. So we only did, set it up on Friday evening, took it down on Sunday, and then put it up again the following weekend.
Wow.
But it was fun. But we also got to rehearsal in June's little red and black Plymouth. And we'd all pile into the car and come to rehearsal. I was teaching at that time. I just begun teaching. And many a restless night, I tell you, a long night. Verna used to put some chairs together and go to sleep. Verna could go to sleep at the drop of a hat. And we'd rehearse until the wee hours of the morning. Sam and Irv were relentless, particularly Irv. We used to call Irv a slave driver, but he was persistent, and he insisted that we do it right, that we get the lines accurate, and he made us rehearse, and rehearse, and rehearse, until he felt okay. Even on Easter Sunday, one year we had to rehearse.
But the craft of acting, I learned while doing Scrooge for my first time with the direction of Mr. Burton and acting with Robert Chu. That was the moment where I learned, like, literally the craft of it, learning about nuances, tone, all that. Mr. Chu, one day Mr. Chu took me in a room and we went through the entire script of inflections, of every line, everything. And I think to this date I still revert back to those moments. So yeah, man, listen, I'm an archive, man. I got stories for days. Mr. Burton didn't play we were like, because it was like family, right? But Mr. Burton also understands the dynamic of girl and male, and male, whatever. So you're not about to be doing or looking crazy in here, whatever. So sometimes, like, the girls would sit on our lap. Just on some, like, brother sister, man, Mr. Burton, man, he said, man, get your ass. we not doing that in here. I said, Mr. Burton, that's like, I don't give a damn who she is. I said, what? I said, but you just learn how to be respectful in the space, in the, you know what I mean?
Well, for 1 year, we went to the Great Hall of the church to which I belong, which I have belonged all my life, and I almost lost my religion in that 1 year. because the priest and I didn't have a good relationship when it came to, what are they doing turning on the lights up there? It's too much electricity being used. Who left their cigarette in this? What's the matter with, and on and on and on and on, we had hassles. And so I said, no, let's move from the church hall. We will have to go find our own locations. Well, for 1 year, we went to the great hall of the church to which I belong, which I have belonged all my life, and I almost lost my religion in that 1 year, because the priest and I didn't have a good relationship when it came.
Well, I'm Troy Burton. I work with everybody. I came to the Arena Players 1987. Hugh Carey said, go down there and you're going to be in this show and Ed Terry's going to direct it and you're just going to do whatever they tell you to do.
Sounds about right.
Right. That's how we work. And I came down here and a whole world opened up to me from the time working with Ed Terry, Hugh Carey, Sam Wilson, I mean, so many others. And I mean, this was, and has always been a playground for me, a place where any and everything that I could dream of doing, it was a place where you could do it. I said, I want to do lights. And Miss Charlene said, there's the ladder, go ahead. And so, yeah, and I mean, many great things came out of that. And I'll share this. I'm not sure the year, but Mrs. Orange hired me to work with the youth theater as a teacher's assistant. And the first day I walked in, Sam Wilson was the director for the youth theater, working with the kids. And he took one look at me and said, okay, I'm out of here. You take the script, it's your turn. And he literally said, no, you're not going to assist me. I'm going to assist you. And that was the first time I've ever directed a play in my life. And I was scared. And he said, nope. I'm going to be in the office when you need me, call me. And he turned me over to like 50, 60 kids. And
They can smell fear.
yeah, and it happened. And we had some magical things happen for the next like 15, 16 years through different productions. And one of the things I've always been grateful is that Miss Orange never said no to me when I had an idea. And I had an idea for an adaptation of a production. She said no, and you can do anything you want. She never said no, and that went on. I mean, we did some great things. And one of my most memorable experiences was being able to take this theater to Europe to do a production, and I felt a lot of weight on me about that because it's like, okay, the Arena Players is doing something internationally, and I got to go over there and represent this theater and do a workshop, to do a children's production, and then to do a main stage production. And to be able to do 3 distinct different things and represent Arena Players, I mean, it blew my mind. But I knew I had to hold it up because, you know, I mean, this was the first time we was doing something like that. So, just to be able to come in here and being pushed. Ed Terry said to me one time, you're going to play the lead adult role in the Tap Dance Kid. And I said, I can't do that. I don't know how to tap dance. He said, you will opening night. And by opening night, I was tap dancing, and no one knew that I knew nothing about tap. And so, I mean, it was a blessing. So to have these mentors, to come in and to pour into you. I mean, it's always been like that. I cut my teeth on Sam Wilson learning a lot of things about administratively. So when I went on to the UB Blake Center, how to run a house and how to touch people and how to, you know, make sure people feel loved when they come in your house. Because he stood at that door, and that was something that was always happening here. So, and he taught us how family, you got to have a family. And then when you have Mrs. Orange over here. So, I mean, the mentors that were here is like, wow. You can't fail at anything with these great people around you.
That's right.
So that's been my experience. And now, as a former youth theater instructor, I get to go to Broadway and watch kids that I taught right here in this theater on Broadway right now. I get to go to the movies and see them on film. You know, another one said, Mr. Burton, go on iTunes and check out my new recording. And I get to listen to their music. And if you need a lawyer, they came out of this youth theater. If you need a dentist, they came out of this youth theater. If you need a doctor, they came out of this youth theater. So it just wasn't the whole thing of just saying just theater. It's life, and that's been a big part of my life, just being here, and just the fellowship, cutting your teeth off of great people. So that's all I'm gonna say.
I need a loan. Where they at?
Let me think, 'cause there's someone. I mean,
Hi, my name is Pamela Sparks. I started in the Arena Players Youth Theater when I was 12, back in '79. So I've been a member, performing here ever since. I grew up, it's funny, my parents sent me here because I was the shy, timid child who...
Wow.
Yeah. It was the Arena Players, actually. It was the teachers that I had in the Arena Players Youth Theater. We had teachers who, so Cheryl Pasteur was my drama teacher then. We had teachers who really and truly cared, who took the time to teach us, who took the time to help us to be better people. And because of that, I stayed. I did my first adult show when I was about 16. I can say I've performed before most of the people around the table here at some point or another. Even if they were in the stage, if they weren't on the stage, they were in the light booth. And I've been very fortunate to perform with a lot of the original members of the Arena Players throughout my time, and that's been absolutely special, because if you want to know what a real diva is, you had to have been able to perform with the Nancy Barracks and the Christine Moores and the June Thorns and the Verna Days and the Joan Corseys, and there's a list that goes on. But these ladies, while they were divas, they were also still teachers as well. So while I was very young, they were also still guiding me and training me. The Arena Players has always had and will always hold a very special place in my heart, because it helped to change and mold and shape me to who I am.
The hall. We moved into the place on a lease, and then we borrowed enough money, got together enough money among the membership to buy the building. So for $10,000, we bought the building, and then we began performing on the second floor of the building. It wasn't very much of a surprise to us when the fire marshal and the housing people all came through with a long list of violations. Oh, no, you have to bring it has to come downstairs or else. Well, we had no money to bring it downstairs. We had just scraped all of our money together to buy a building, and we were very proud landlords. It's a 3-story building. It has a lot of space and a lot of history. I've heard tales that during World War I, they had kept horses on the 3rd floor. Now, I don't know how that was possible, except that there was a big thing that looked like a hoist out in back, and somebody said they used to strap equipment onto the horses and lift them up into the air to the 3rd floor. Well, I couldn't get heads or tails of that story, but we're still trying to investigate it. If there are any people around who know any more about it, we'd like to know some more of the history. But we bought the building, we ran into the fire marshals, we were about ready to be closed because of these violations, and we invited the mayor, William Donald Schaefer, to come to see a production. He was so enthusiastic about this production, and it impressed him so much that we presented to him the problem that we were having, and he decided he would do something to give us some help. So there was financial aid that came from the city through one of the block grants. That particular money was used to move the theater downstairs. So we got rid of some of those violations. Then when we moved downstairs, we found we had 2,000 other problems, because now you got a new kind of theater, you have to have new equipment, you have to bring many other things up to standard. So we went into a fundraising drive, And we were very, 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 very fortunate to have a man who was a businessman and knew what he was doing lead us in that drive, and that was Henry Parks from Parks Sausages. They don't send people like that along too frequently, and we miss him greatly because of his knowledge, his expertise. I hate that word because it's so worn out, but he knew how to handle a dollar and what to do with it, where to get it, number one, where to get it, how to use it, and how to check on what was being done with the money. He was a wonderful businessman, an inspiration to all of us, and a patron of the arts. When we were selling $1 and 10-cent tickets, Henry would come in and buy 50 tickets and say, give them away to somebody. He'd donate $100 at the drop of a hat. He believed in the theater. He was not...
And I am inspired and continue to be inspired by this lady right here.
Amen. Yes.
Cheryl Pasteur was the drama teacher in Walbrook, and shout out to Kim Adams, who told me literally, Sheila, I went to a place and everybody act like you. And I was like, what this what? And then I went there, and sure enough, everybody act like me, and she was the teacher. And so I came down here because she would tell us all about auditions, and I came down here and I saw Mama Cheryl, and then Mama Kay do, was it 227? I don't know what play that was, but I was like in the 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade, and I was like, I want to do that. They tore that stage up, and I was like, this is exactly where I want to be. And I think if I did not find this creative outlet, that I would probably be on drugs or in jail. Seriously. And so I'm just grateful to people who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so Arena Playhouse, I'm old school. Douglas and Curtis and all of those people. Ellis Place was one of the plays that we did here. And then I've been doing Mom's Mabley here for quite some time, even though now girlfriend is doing it now. Where's Sandra at now? Where's she at? So she has taken over the Mom's Mabley role. All my jokes though, but that's okay. And she's doing a wonderful job with that.
Gotta love.
Yeah, definitely. And so I remember being in college, learning about the Arena Playhouse, reading about it in school and some of my classes. And I've learned so much that it's just amazing.
Now, we just want to ask you a few questions.
A few questions? You mean my client was arrested, dragged down here in handcuffs, and all you have is a few questions? Certainly hope you have something more than that, officer. You're looking at a huge lawsuit.
We have enough to get your client lethal injection, or at least put her away for a long time.
Well, what is it?
In due time, Mr. Braxton. First, I need to hear Mrs. Vaughn's version again.
Detective Shaughnessy, I'm not a tape recorder. I'm not going to repeat my story at your whim.
That's fine, because we pretty much already know what happened, and in your case, what didn't happen.
Well, hell, what am I here for?
Look, the DA gave me permission to offer you 2 counts of murder 1. Now, that's 25 years each count. I guarantee you, if you pursue this and go to trial, you will get the death penalty. This was a brutal crime committed against 2 people for financial gain. Now, you sign an admission of guilt, plead guilty, we can avoid going through a lengthy trial, and you can start serving your sentence now.
My client will not be serving...
Wait, Counselor. Now, I know the reason you're suggesting this. Arthur was a prominent figure in this community. The mayor and the governor must be putting major pressure on you to find his killer, and you just picked me. Now, isn't that right?
Sure. But it was the clear-cut evidence that pointed us in your direction.
Well, I'm not admitting to a damn thing that I didn't do.
Listen, Mrs. Vaughn, we found enormous inconsistencies in your story. First, you claimed you were sitting next to Mr. Vaughn when he was shot. But when we questioned you at the hospital, your gown was not covered in blood, which it would have been if you were sitting next to Mr. Vaughn. You see, Mr. Vaughn was shot through the neck. The bullet completely penetrated the jugular vein, saturating the back seat in blood. We have your wedding dress. We found it in the trash at your home, and it was not covered in blood. And last but not least, your wedding gloves. We found them in the sewer near the crime scene, and they were covered in gunpowder. We have you, Mrs. Vaughn. We have you.
May I have a moment alone with my client?
Sure. Convince your client that the deal's the best way to go.
Margaret, they've got a lot of evidence against you. Given what you've told me, I think you should take the deal.
That'll be all, Counselor.
That'll be all what?
That will be all for today. I'll sleep on it and call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Ms. Vaughn, come with me, please.